welcome to SydDT number 121. So this year we turn 10. Who's here for the first time tonight? Few hands? Fewer hands than normal. So hopefully you've made lots of new friends and met your neighbours. And this is part 1 of SydDT. When we're done, we go over the road to the pub. So that's when we play on and you can meet even more people. So just to kick off, just want to acknowledge that we're on Gadigal country. I'm lucky to live, work and play on Gadigal land and Stokes. And so want to acknowledge all the elders past, present and future. A huge thanks to Atlassian for hosting us. So Stokesy and Frankie, and I'm going to hand over to Stokesy to say a few words.
Thanks everyone for coming, and for any people in the audience today that might be interested in a new start at a different organisation, Atlassian have got 6 roles currently available in Sydney or remote. So that means you could be anywhere in Australia or New Zealand. So there's a variety of things from content design, managing, lead, principal, hands-on, technologist. Why not give it a try? And thank you very much for coming, and we really love hosting Sydney Design Thinking. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Stokesy and Frankie and Atlassian for hosting, because without our very valued collaborators and sponsors, we don't get to do this every month, so it means a lot. And a few more. So let's start with Diana and Ellyn. Tell us about Shapeshifters.
Thank you. Hi everyone. Hi. I'm Diana, this is Ellyn. We're from Shapeshifters. We specialize in strategic communication design. We help teams and organizations craft meaningful messages through visual storytelling and human-centered design. And we're very, very passionate about visual thinking and the fact that everyone, not just illustrators and designers, can apply it in different ways. And I want to tell you a little bit more about that.
We're so passionate about it. In fact, we have our own meetup, which turned 2 yesterday. So yesterday we had our 18th meetup, and Lucas, one of the founders of SydDT, was our speaker yesterday. So it was wonderful. But Think Visual, the meetup, is really focused on supporting the idea and the practice of visual thinking for everybody. So we kind of do it through scribing and sketchnoting, which you'll see tonight. But yeah, tonight actually that kind of takes us to the very special people that Diana has organised, who will be scribing tonight's event live. So what's going to be happening is there's going to be a number of talks, and each of these scribes is going to be visualizing the information live as we go.
Come on. So you've probably seen most of scribing actually at SydDT, because we've had this initiative for Sydney Design Thinking for a while now, and so at every event we've got a volunteer who's never scribed before usually, or maybe like once or twice, and they come up and do it in the safe space to practice. And so we've got Jayce, Ellyn, Shanna, and Renee. And Renee, sorry, it's been a very long day. And Renee joining us today to do it. And you can do it in your own sketchbooks if you want. It's basically it's called sketchnoting, and you just use images and words to create like a map of the conversation. That usually helps with memory retention and memory retention.
So that's us.
Awesome. See, Diana needed to be sketching while she was writing to be able to get it all out. We've also got Bright Pods, so Ben Crothers. There's Nila from Arcade Collection. They'll be sharing and speaking tonight, so you hear a bit more about them. And Brandon from Good Design Australia as well. So lots of supporters, lots of people it takes to bring this stuff together. And I'm from Dynamic 4 as well as Sydney Design Thinking. So, thanks. Oh yeah, my name's Ben. I always forget to say that part. So I'm doing one last shout out for some research I've been doing over the last while. Sort of exploring how leaders are adapting to the shifting expectations of all the different stakeholders in their lives. So their teams, customers, regulators and investors, what's going on. And so if that's something that you're interested in, there's also hear from a lot of people, but I'm not a leader. One of the very first questions is, what does it mean to you to be a leader? And do you see yourself as one? So just because you don't hold the title, don't let that put you off. I'm very much interested in your perspective. And coming up to 300 people have participated in the research so far, including a bunch of people in the room. So thanks for everyone that's already done it, and the rest, I'd love to hear your perspective as well. So the other thing that it takes to make this happen every month is our little crew of people. And we've got Kate Linton, clapping for Kate. Thank you. Lucas as well. And Kylie can't make it tonight, but hopefully see her in a couple of weeks at the next one. Which brings us to what's coming up next. And because it's a crazy time of year, we thought we'd make it crazier and do our usual end of year mega meetup that we do as Design Connection with our friends from the EUX meetup and the CCX meetup. So hopefully everyone goes to those meetups as well. Are they familiar acronyms? I'm getting a few nods, good. So we come together a few times a year as Design Connection and do a mega meetup. So the next one's in 2 weeks and it will be at the other Atlassian building. So don't come here in 2 weeks. Make sure you get your ticket, hit that QR code, and then that'll be our last one for the year. And then we'll be back in action second Thursday of the month. This is our normal cycle from February. So you get December and January off. Well, I do. So the other thing that's coming up is that hopefully everyone's seen that. So this year, whoop, got that on the timer. This year, I'm going to have to hit this again in a moment. We started the Australian Design Thinking as a collective. So if you're up and down and around the country, if you're in starting in Brisbane and then down to Byron, Goldie, Sydney, Adelaide and Melbourne, then there are meetups on, all organised by local people and teams, and we collaborate and help each other out. So lots of places and things to get involved with, and so you can do a tour of Australia and hang out with good people doing design thinking stuff. And Melbourne's meetup's on tonight, so go Melbourne. And today, hopefully everyone knows, is also World Usability Day. And there's somebody who's going to tell us all about it because she actually helped get World Usability Day off the ground 21 years ago. Hey. Susan.
So you kind of stole my thunder because
sorry.
No, it's okay. Because I was going to say, speaking of anniversaries, I wanted to be the first and perhaps only person to wish you a happy World Usability Day. Fortunately, we are because of where we are in the world, we are ahead of the game, right? So, because the first, World Usability Day is always the second, what's today? Thursday of November. And that happens to oftentimes coincide with this meetup. And I think it's kind of fortuitous that it coincides with this meetup because we often have this conversation at this time of year, summarizing all of the great design that's been happening. And so what I did up here was I summarized the themes for the 21 years that World Usability Day has been going. It is an international holiday, just like International Cat Day and things like that. But it is legally on the calendar as a holiday. And if you take a look, and I'm not going to say any more, but if you take a look at the themes here, you'll see sort of a consistent theme about doing good in the world. It's not just about designing the next great widget, but it's about really doing good in the world. And I think it's a great compliment to our industry that this is happening, and a great compliment to tonight's presentations. So happy World Usability Day, everybody.
Thank you. So that brings us to the main course, and hopefully everyone already knows that since 2018 we've been doing it as an annual sort of event of a recap and a State of the Design Nation, and hanging out with Ben Crothers to do that since 2018, so we've been going a while now. And this year, because there's been a lot going on, we thought we'd sort of look at not just the Good Design Awards in Australia, which are awesome and important, There's also the regional level with the Seoul Design Award, and then there's the World Design Congress that was on in September as well. And there's a through line for all of these things that's is part of what we'll explore tonight. And I'm going to tag out now and give it to the other Ben. I can be B1 because I went first, you be B2. And he's going to guide us through as we hear from Ben, Nila and Brandon, and in for a fun night. So see you on the other side at the pub.
Thank you, B1. You're always B1, I'm always B2. I never get to be B1. And oh my goodness, how white are my teeth? My teeth are never in that way. Huge thank you from myself and Brandon and Nila for coming along tonight, and big thanks to Atlassian for sharing this space with us. Like, I'm super stoked to be here tonight. It is a highlight of my calendar whenever I'm a judge on the Good Design Awards. This is my 10th, would you believe it, 10th year of being a judge. I think there are others that might have, have more longevity than me, but we're here tonight to hopefully not only give you a snapshot of some of the highlights and some particular entries and winners that we are particularly thrilled about, but we want to help elevate your thinking a bit. Whatever is going on for you right now, like in your job, in your life, and I know for some people, look, it's brutal out there at the moment. There's a lot going on. But just for this evening, we really want this to be a breath of fresh air for you. We want to give you something to mentally chew on. All right, and to kick us off, we have the wonderful, very handsome and well-regarded and very intelligent Brandon. Come on up.
Hi everyone, thank you for that very embarrassing introduction today. B1, B2. Firstly, just a massive thank you to Ben and the team for inviting me. I've been to quite a few of these and I love them, and hats off to you guys for organising such an amazing event. A real honour to talk about design. I will talk about design at the drop of a hat, so it's quite easy to get me to come along to these kind of events. I guess just hopefully use the next 10-15 minutes to share my own design journey with you guys, and then I'm going to pass on to Ben and Nila to talk a bit more about the Design Awards and what's happening internationally as well. So, quick snapshot for those of you who don't know what Good Design Australia does and who we are. We originally set up by, believe it or not, the federal government back in 1958 as the Industrial Design Council of Australia. And I always reflect back on that going, man, that would have been an awesome time to be alive, where we had a federal government that actually understood the value and power of design, and they did so, and they funded a body that supported and promoted design. And if you look back at the history books, and we've got all this amazing archive material, that really the whole intention of that body was to help manufacturers at the time be more globally competitive. It's well before the internet was created, well before this thing called globalization existed, and we had a federal government that actually understood and embraced design. It would have been an awesome time to be alive. It was the heyday of design. We had Prince Philip, dear old Prince Philip, was the patron of the Industrial Design Council of Australia. He would come out here every year and hand out the Prince Philip Prize for Australian design. We've got footage actually of him coming down George Street. It was a ticker tape parade. Really amazing, I guess, time for design and where design was positioned. The awards, the Australian Design Awards as they were known back then, were televised on ABC to an audience of 3 million people at the time, and just incredible, right? So that's Ita Buttrose over there awarding the Prince Philip Prize to Caroma, developed the dual flush toilet that probably sits in many households across Australia. You sort of fast forward to the 1990s, the federal government said, oh, we probably don't need this thing anymore. So they handed it across to Standards Australia, a little 5-tick organisation. And I joined Standards Australia fresh out of university in 1996, it's almost 30 years ago. Studied industrial design and got thrown into this world of design awards and design promotion. And Loved every single minute of it. If we sort of fast forward to 2008, that was our the 50th anniversary of the Industrial Design Council of Australia. We opened up the awards internationally. Believe it or not, that was not a very easy thing to do. We had a lot of people on one side of the fence saying we should just keep it Australian, and we had a lot of people on the other side of the fence saying, you know what, we're operating in a global market. If we're going to be benchmarking design, Australian design, we should be benchmarking it against the rest of the world. And all the way to 2025, the reason the Sydney Opera House is there, we actually had our 60th anniversary at the Sydney Opera House. That was a massive celebration of the awards, and also that very important milestone. We invited Jan Utzon, the son of Jorn Utzon, who designed the Opera House, as our guest of honour, and it was a really, really beautiful, special night. The milestone in 2025, as in this year, we actually were incredibly fortunate to have the Governor-General of Australia be our patron, and that's a big, big coup for us. It finally, out of years and years and years of banging your head against a brick wall talking to politicians, we sort of skipped the politicians and went straight to the Governor-General, and we had our awards night recently in Sydney, and sharing the stories with a couple of people. She gets design, and she really spoke from the heart about how design can be used as this change agent, and it was just a breath of fresh air. So, and the other big thing that happened in 2025 is we officially became a B Corp. So the first, thank you. As far as we know, the only design organisation in the world to be certified as a B Corp. So we're really, really proud of that as well. And that was a way for us to really demonstrate that we were, practicing what we preach as well. I love showing this picture. So this was me about 33 years ago, my second year in industrial design. So actually, I started off doing mechanical engineering at the Newcastle University, and actually hated it. I just kind of like, wow, it's just maths and physics and chemistry, and it's kind of a whole bunch of numbers, and it didn't quite sit with me. And I considered switching over to architecture until I met an industrial designer who was, I think, in third year. And I was like, that is exactly what I want to do. And I switched over. And at Newcastle University, every year they have a thing called the Billy Cart Race. And without a doubt, the engineers won it every single year. And the prize was a 50-litre keg of beer. So when I switched over and was now studying industrial design, I told my industrial design mates, like, guys, we've got to win this. We've got to take that title off the engineers. And that's what we came up with. Probably the most dangerous looking thing in the world. We welded two bikes together. So you can see the two bicycles. We came up with a really, really rudimentary steering system. The mattress that you see there, we got from St. Vinny's. And it was literally head first down a hill, and we won. We won our 50 litres of beer. The reason I tell that story is that for me, that was that fundamentally different way of thinking. Engineers would go a textbook, and like all their billy carts pretty much looked the same. They were so fine-tuned. There was very little innovation. There was very little creativity. We didn't know what we were doing. We just knew that we wanted to go down the hill head first, and we kind of experimented along the way. And for me, I think that's just one of the fundamental things, the fundamental differences in the way that designers think and engineers think. There's a lot more experimentation, there's a lot more creativity that's blended into it, and it's something that I kind of carry through now as I've sort of been in this game for almost 30 years. So somehow I went from being that scruggly young design student, and I don't know how I did it, still to this day, was elected to the board of the World Design Organisation. So this is the global body for industrial design. They're based out of Montreal. The World Design Organisation has just over 250 design associations from all over the world who are members of the WDO. You're probably going to think there's a common thread here with beer, but I actually took a bet with one of my best mates that I could get elected to the board of the World Design Organisation, and I bet him a case of beer. And I rang him, this is in San Francisco, and I said, you owe me a case of beer, I got elected. And it was, and still is, probably one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had in my life. I was this young, naive Aussie, and all of a sudden I'm sitting at a table with some of the most incredible designers, and it really just blew my head open about I guess just where design is being positioned globally and what's happening internationally. I got to travel to pretty much every single part of the world and saw amazing examples of good design, but actually also witnessed amazing examples of really, really, really bad design. And it just shaped a lot of the way that I think, a lot of the way that I kind of see what design is and what design capability can do. The one thing that I'm super proud of is that when I joined the board, we were kind of this enormous ship without a rudder. That's the way I just explained it. Incredibly prestigious organisation, but we just lacked direction. And when I started to kind of read through all the minutes and all the information around the World Design Organisation, I came across this little thing that said, we are the only global design organisation that has consultative status with the United Nations. And I'm like, so I asked the stupid question, as designers do, like, why aren't we leveraging that? Why don't we actually lean into that? And that became sort of the narrative that I kept on pushing. And we were also going through a big transformation of the organisation. It actually used to be called the International Council of Societies of Industrial Design. A real mouthful. And I was like, that's kind of, it doesn't make sense to anyone. Why don't we just call ourselves the World Design Organisation? I kept on pushing this idea, and why don't we actually align the whole vision and mission of the World Design Organisation to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. They are all, most of them are actually design challenges. So after almost 8 years on the board, I very, very luckily got elected as president by pushing that narrative. And we changed the name, we changed the mission, we changed the vision of the organisation, and really had this ambitious idea of designing a better world. Our tagline was "Design for a Better World." And really try to live up to that expectation and that aspiration of what does that actually mean. And again, just an amazing group of people here, and I always just to have these pinch me moments going, how the hell did I end up here? And it really, I guess, just framed everything in the way that I think about design. And coming back to Australia, where nobody knew what the World Design Organisation was like, oh yeah, that's nice. But investing all of that IP into the Good Design Awards is something that I'm super proud of as well. But just a couple of people that I want to share with you in terms of, you know, that really influenced the way that I think. And I had the amazing honour of meeting this guy 20 odd years ago as well during that journey, Bruce Mao. Some of you may know, amazing Canadian designer. And he comes from a communication design background, and he just, you know, the way that he describes design just resonated, I'm sure resonates with everyone else in this room, that we have this superpower of describing and designing a world that has not yet been created, and using our skills to not only illustrate what that world might look like, but actually designing our way towards it. And I spent a lot of time with Bruce. He's just a lovely, lovely human being, and the way that he articulates the craft and the way that he articulates the power of design is something that's absolutely resonated with me, and I'm sure with many in the room as well. This person was just, sometimes I talk and I kind of might just lose my shit here, because there's an emotional connection here. So Kenji Ekwan, probably one of the most respected Japanese industrial designers. He designed that beautiful thing that I'm sure you guys are all familiar with, the Kikkoman soy sauce bottle, as well as interiors of you know, the bullet trains that you see across Japan. GK Design Group, I think, is one of the biggest design agencies in the world now, with offices all over the world. And he was the former president of the World Design Organisation, so I got to spend quite a bit of time with him. One of the things that happens when you're on the board of the World Design Organisation and you're tapped on the shoulder to be the next president is you actually have to get the endorsement of the oldest past president. So no pressure, I had to fly to Tokyo and I had dinner with Kenji, and it was probably the most nervous I've ever been in my entire life, and he asked me what good design is, and I straight away went to, well, you know, it's about functionality, and it's about sustainability, and it's about quality, and all these things that I thought I learned at university, and he just sat there and shook his head, and he said, oh no, this is not what good design is, and I thought, oh God, I failed. And he just came up with this statement, good design, and I said to him, like, with the greatest of respect, how would you describe good design? And he said, good design is beautiful. And he told me his story. That's Kenji there as a little baby, a little bit older. His parents were killed in the Hiroshima bomb, the atomic bomb. And when he tells you the story, I mean, you can't help but be incredibly emotional. And he said when he was a boy, he wanted to grow up to make sure that never ever happened again. He wanted to work in an industry where he could do everything in his power to make sure that he was not designing things that did that again. And that became his overall philosophy. He's a Buddhist monk, so very, very spiritual, very, very philosophical. And he describes good design as being beautiful because it's not just about the aesthetic, it's about the way something works. It's this beauty beyond just the form, beyond just the function. The Kikkoman soy sauce is a beautiful example. It's a beautiful object, but it actually functions so beautifully well. Many of you know that if you cover one of the holes, it controls the flow of the soy sauce coming out. Just these little touches of elegance. And the bit that really, really touched me was Kenji passed away. Well, I won't skip to that yet. I flew back to Australia and thought I completely bombed that whole meeting. There's no way in hell he's going to endorse me. And I got an email from his office saying it was an absolute pleasure to meet me and that he endorses me to become the next president, which was amazing. And a couple of months later, he passed away. What was the most touching thing in my entire career is that he wrote a note in his will that he wanted me to speak at his funeral. So that's me in Tokyo. Kenji's lying in a casket up there. And I think to this day, it was one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had in my life to have that honour, to honour him, and to honour his philosophy of actually designing a better world. And that's something that I've just carried with me forever, and I will carry with me forever and ever and ever. Another person who I had the honour of meeting, Dieter Rams, many of you know, was the head of design at Braun, the German appliance manufacturer. So Dieter was on the board of the World Design Organization, and I'm sure many of you guys know his 10 principles of good design, which I think are so relevant still today. This is almost 45 years ago. And my favorite is number 10, and I think it's so relevant. Like, good design is as little design as possible. And I think as designers, we sometimes fall into that trap of over-designing something, like just not knowing when to stop, not knowing when to go, that's enough, you know, it'll do, or trying to just add things that don't necessarily need to be there as well. This beautiful person, Patty Moore, Patricia Moore, that's not what she looks like, by the way. So the idea of empathy, I think, is just such an important thing that designers do and should do and embrace more. So Patty's story, some of you may know, she got tasked as a very young designer to design a whole range of products for elderly people, for aged care, so walking sticks and walking frames and wheelchairs. And she just dived into this idea of empathy. She dressed herself up as an old person and roamed the streets of New York for a year, not just a day, not just a week, 12 months, caught trains, caught public transport, just to feel what it was like to be treated like an old person. I think that's such a beautiful and powerful story. The sad part is, when she tells the story, it's just devastating. She said she learned so much through that process, but where she knew she had to stop was she was actually beaten up one night in the subway so badly that she could never have children again. And you can imagine just how incredibly gut-wrenching that would be. But again, the idea of empathy and understanding what it would be like to be an old person if you're designing products and services and systems for old people. And I often use that as an example. If you're designing a wheelchair for someone and you've never sat in a wheelchair, how could you ever do that? Disability Usability Day, I think, is such a great example of that, right? So as designers, I think empathy is our superpower. I wish our politicians practice empathy a lot more as well. We'd probably have a better country. And I'm going to just end on one project that came through the awards that, to me, just exemplifies what good design is all about. We get roughly about 1,000 projects each year that come through the Australian Good Design Awards. So for me to pick one is like trying to pick my favourite child, because just every year there's just a whole new series of projects that come through, and I'm eternally grateful to the jury that come through and evaluate these projects, because I couldn't do it. I love them all. But this project to me is a standout. And it all centres around using design to solve a pretty big problem. Believe it or not, there are about almost 2 billion people in the world that suffer from anemia. Those of you who know, anemia is when you don't have enough red blood cells, and you know, it's a very, very serious health condition. There's a gentleman who identified that there was an area in Cambodia that had the highest rates of anemia in the world, and he wanted to find out why. He was a PhD research student. He flew to Cambodia and wanted to kind of go, why is anemia off the charts in this particular region? And he quickly found out that their diet consisted mainly of rice and fish, obviously, and that their cooking utensils were mostly made aluminium pots and pans. And you might go, well, why is that relevant? So he thought to himself, he also had this other piece of research going on, that if you cook with an iron pot, the iron in the pot actually dissolves and goes into the food. So he thought to himself, I reckon I could actually solve this problem if I made these little blocks about the size of marbles, distributed them to these villages with a nice piece of communication to say, when you cook, put this little iron block in your aluminium pot and pan, and it will dissolve, and your family will get the relevant amount of iron. So they couldn't afford iron pots, right? And he thought he was going to change the world. It was going to be the best thing in the world. And anyway, because it was a research project, 6 months later he came back to do a sample and see, you know, whether anything had shifted. And much to his surprise, no one was using the little iron blocks to cook. The kids were playing marbles with it. They were using it as little stops to level their tables from rocking. And there's a whole bunch of them that were just thrown away. And it's like, well, what am I doing wrong here? This is life and death. Like, you guys should be using this little iron block that I gave you and put it in your food, because your kids are going to be healthier. And then he met an industrial designer, and things changed. The industrial designer went through a design process and noticed this symbol that was spread all over Cambodia. It was the symbol of a fish. And he said, well, why don't we just have a look at what that means? And this symbol actually means luck. So he changed the narrative, used the same iron block, and turned it into that, which is a lucky iron fish. Went back to the same villages, gave them pretty much the same block, except now it's in the shape of a fish. But changed the communication. Said, don't put this in your food because it's going to make you healthy. Put it in your food because it's going to bring you luck. Came back 6 months later, everyone was cooking with this fish, measured the rates of anemia, that all dropped. And I just think that is such a beautiful example of what design can bring to a problem. He's now distributing these lucky iron fish through the United Nations all over the world. What I love is that he's actually not only designed the fish, but he's designed the whole business model as well. So I can buy, any of you guys can go online and buy lucky iron fish, and the proceeds of that go towards funding a lucky iron fish for a family. And roughly, I think one fish lasts about 12 months, or a bit longer. So one family can cook until the entire thing dissolves. He even thought about, I don't know where this video comes from, but yeah, there should be a little snippet here about the manufacturing process. So just making it very low tech, smeltering them, pouring them into sandcast molds, so it's not too complicated to make. So for me, it's just, I always throw this example up because it's just a beautiful example when we're trying to talk about the power of design and the power of impact through design. This one hits it every single time. And I just want to end by, I guess, something else that we're super proud of, and that whole idea of practicing what we preach. Believe it or not, when I started on 30 odd years ago, we used to give, the design award that we would give out was a big block of Perspex shaped like a D, a big horrible chunk of plastic, and we can't do that anymore. This is the recycling depot up in the Central Coast. I went up there and I've never seen anything like it in my life. Every single day there's a mountain of plastic that arrives from pretty much Greater Sydney, and it's dumped there and they have to process it. And it just shocked me, wow, we've got a serious problem in the way that we deal with plastic. And we worked with Defy Design, clandestine design group up in Brisbane to redesign our trophy. Every single trophy is made from pretty much 1 kilogram of post-consumer plastic. It's compression molded, made here in Sydney. That aluminium extrusion is actually made in South Australia from recycled aluminium. And I always joke, when we give this beautiful symbol of design excellence to these incredible designers, we're actually giving them a chunk of rubbish. And I think it's something that we're super, super proud of as well. That's the back of one of the sustainability awards. You can actually see old shampoo bottles that have been pressed in. And I just want to leave you with this. I read this, and I'm not sure, it might be 1 or 2 billion years off, but isn't that just incredible that if our Earth in fact is 4.6 billion years old, and if you scale that to 46 years, we've actually as human beings only been here for 4 hours. And if you then go back to the Industrial Revolution, which is where industrial design came out of, that's the harm that we've created. We've actually got rid of 50% of the world's rainforests, and 60% of wildlife has become extinct. As a designer, I really struggle with that. We contributed to a lot of that. We've come out of this idea of the Industrial Revolution where we can make lots of things very quickly, very efficiently, that all end up in landfill. So there's a whole reframing of the way that we as designers have to think about what it is that we do. And I'll just leave you with this, because many of you know the whole buzz was about user-centered design. We were all about putting the user in the center of our problem and designing everything around that user, which then shifted to human-centered design. We know that as well. And I think the thing that I'm incredibly proud of is if I look back at that 30-year journey with the World Design Organization and trying to put a rudder in that big ship and steer it towards something meaningful. We had the World Design Congress in London, and the entire theme was Design for Planet. And that was, I think, hopefully I played a tiny little role in just shifting that narrative from it being all about us to actually being all about the planet that we live in and the way that we design for that planet. And with that, I'm going to now hand over to the amazing B2 to tell us a bit more about the design of.
Thank you, Brandon. Actually, before you walk so gracefully off, can you come back? I've just got a question for you. Actually, 2 questions, if I may. I couldn't help but notice, if we go back, and bear with me here, Brandon's probably thinking, what on earth is going to happen here? But my eagle eye noticed something, and I wonder if you noticed something. Way back on this slide here, I'm kind of jealous of this competition that you were in, this one here. Now, you said you won, right? I want to know, have a look at the front, right? Notice these. I want to know, was these dangerous sticky outy parts part of your winning strategy?
I can't believe you actually noticed that. We considered sawing those off, and we thought, no, that's part of the look. If anyone gets in our way, we're going to just run straight into it. I can't believe you actually noticed that.
I knew it. Thank you so much, Brandon.
Sorry. Yeah, it's like literally 2 old bicycles, and we just came up with this weird way of steering. And I think the reason we got down that hill so quickly is because our center of gravity was so low to the ground, it just flew up. So, and no helmet as well.
Thank you, Brandon. Brandon, the chair of Good Design Awards, everyone. And you'll find this transition, this maturity that we've all been through from user-centered design to human-centered design to planet-centered design. This is our thread all throughout tonight, and I'm sure you've seen this as well in the industry. I don't want to hog the mic for too long. I want to give some time to Nila, but it would be remiss of us if we didn't share with you some of the main winners of some good design awards this year. You might be thinking, well, how do we pick winners? Real quick, we do our very, very best to make this process as objective as possible. And we do that with a set of criteria. Now, yes, I know the first one is good design. Does the project meet the criteria for good design in the category? There is a ton of specific criteria per category, and last count, where's he gone? There he is. How many categories are there, Brandon? About 12?
There's 13 design disciplines, and there's 35 subcategories underneath all those.
13 design disciplines and 35 subcategories within those. So it is a very rigorous process. Me personally, I was just really touched by a lot of what Brandon shared before. Thank you for that very personal account. To me, it really sticks out that design is a deeply human activity, isn't it? Now, I've sort of grown up as a designer. I've been a designer for over 25 years now, and I guess I sort of grew up on this gospel of you are not your work. Your work is not you. Yeah? Have you heard this? And yeah, and in some ways that's true. It's good to sort of disassociate yourself from your work, especially when we're in design critique sessions, especially when something gets knocked back, especially when something doesn't get funded, you know. And yet, ladies and gentlemen, we can't help but put a little piece of our soul into our work, right? And this is what I hear, and I think, yeah, design is a deeply human activity, and I think that's something that we need to hang on to. Sorry, that's one of my very many soapboxes. Moving right along, we have design innovation. Does the project set a new benchmark in some way? Does it nudge the discipline of design forward in some way? Design impact. Will the project have potential to improve the quality of life for people and our planet? We're hearing that theme a lot. And there's a video we want to show you now. It's basically just some of the jury this year reflecting on the process. Hey Pecco, how does this work? Do I just click again and with some luck and then run away?
I think what's really interesting about the Good Design Awards is the fact that there's two sides to it. One is the fact that the industry comes together and finds those special things that kind of really celebrate how far the industry's pushed itself from a design perspective. But importantly, on the other side, it's basically a signpost for excellence. It's a way for the public to actually decide what good design is.
What's unique about it is it brings together so many different disciplines within the design field, gives all of us the opportunity to talk to each other and understand different perspectives within our broader industry, which I don't think happens really in any other awards program. I've really enjoyed being involved because there's been such clear direction and order in how to judge what we were looking at.
The awards care deeply about how design is understood by the general population. And so the design awards take great pains to help people understand the breadth of applications for design.
There are several things that make them special. The high standard of the entries, the clarity of the criteria, and the camaraderie that you get between all the jury members, the judges who never met each other before. But Good Design Australia bring them all together.
The community of people every step of the way, so you feel like it's a personal relationship rather than you're just joining a company or an awards panel. Everyone cares. That's what I'm feeling, you know, in the room. I love the heated debates. It's a really interesting process because it's a 3-stage process. I love the progression of how it starts with you. Then it becomes with your peers and you debate, you deliberate, you discuss your scores versus their scores, why you scored them this way, why you think it is or isn't worth an award, and that also ends up in some really interesting interesting learnings. It's really collaborative and it's iterative. So we do go through a few different cycles of judging. We interrogate the applications against the specific design categories, which might be design impact, for example, and see, A, is it answering, that question? B, can they demonstrate it? How do you judge impact when some of these applications and entries are at concept level? So they have an opportunity to scale it. And do we judge that, or do we judge it for its potential to impact and amplify and change society?
It's fascinating to see how many perspectives and different aspects every design has, but also to participate and work with other designers who also care deeply about the integrity of great work and just rewarding and recognizing and then celebrating great design.
I think the Australian culture lends itself to appreciate good design. We have a proud history of stump jump ploughs and hills hoists and all sorts of different innovations over the years. Tends to lean towards, yeah, but does it pass the pub test? And that is, what good will it bring me? Does it just look good, or does it do something? And that's what good design is, isn't it? It does look good, sure, but it's got to do something for society.
Good design to me is design that is generous, that's excellent, but also generous. It allows people to be a better version of themselves. It allows humans, but also it allows the environment to be a better place for everyone. So it's not just about the human, it's actually about beyond human. We come together on this amazing night to celebrate success, to celebrate different people's journeys. What I would say to everyone in the room is think about how you can actually help others to do better. And we all have a role to play in inspiring others.
There are so many wonderful things about design in that it's not just about beauty and joy, but about functionality and facilitation of a better way of experiencing the world.
The fact that the tick actually means something, it means excellence. And I think ultimately in a world that's full of noise, having something that can help you navigate to the one that's been thought through.
It's quite empowering about being a designer is that first and foremost, you're a problem solver. And it gives you the power to look beyond what's presented to you and enables you to dream about what could be. And I think that's a superpower.
I think the big message is never stop thinking critically about what you're designing. That there's always room for improvement. Some of the really basic things have large impact far beyond what you would imagine when you're thinking about that problem to solve. But you've got to keep pushing the boundaries in design. It's always going to be evolving, and I love the fact that there's so many Australian designers and companies represented in the awards.
For me, it's really about collaborating to get a better outcome when you get to work together to solve a problem, find a solution to something, to make life easier, but also to help solve really big world challenges like sustainability.
The best work I've ever done is with other people. When I stepped into this area of Indigenous design, it was almost meant to be, I think, as well as I saw the opportunity for national impact, and I hadn't seen that before. Design being my way that I even found my way back to my heritage, which was just a beautiful journey. And at the same time, I did it through design, which is at my own pace. It's helped me understand, especially the work I'm doing now at Ballaringi, design can actually change the national lens.
The thing I'd say to everyone is really celebrate this, celebrate what good design looks like, and make sure everyone talks about it.
It's one of my favourite days of the year. We're all having a great reunion. I'm surrounded by my tribe, and it's like coming home.
Design has to take a bold step in helping us imagine how we're going to live in the future. So keep doing what you're doing, it's incredible.
Isn't it fantastic? I always find that inspiring, and I love being on the jury. If this sort of thing lights you up, if you're particularly proud of what you've been working on, we'd love you to enter. Entries tend to open around April every year. Stick it in the calendar now. You can go to gooddesign.org. That's good, you know how to spell good. Good-design.org. And we would love you to enter. So speaking of entries, here's the accolades that are up for grabs. The main thing I want you to get from this is we award a Good Design Award of the Year. That's the highest accolade. And then there's Good Design Award winners. This is the green tick in each subcategory. The best in subcategories, there's the gold, and there's a best in class for each of the subcategories. And it's the best in class ones, they're the ones that we then assess for the Good Design Award of the Year. And there are a few other accolades as well. For example, the Australian Good Design Award for Sustainability. And this year, it was won by a building called First Building, Bradfield City Centre. What is remarkable about this, I mean, for a start, it is the sexiest warehouse you are ever going to see. But not only was it designed with the Indigenous community and elders on country, and it had Indigenous design principles designed into it, you can disassemble it. It's made so that if they need to move it, make it bigger, change the configuration, they can, which is just mind-boggling for a building of that scale. You can take it apart and reconfigure it. The Indigenous Design Award this year went to this entry called Footprints on Gadigal Nura. Has anyone seen this? It's at the, thank you, the Waterloo metro station. Each of those pairs of feet are from an individual. They're not just machined from one generic foot. And they're all from the Indigenous community. And that shows two of the artworks. There's more than two, but those are the sort of really eye-grabby ones. What I find super stunning about this, it's one of the sort of design principles I really have to heart in public space design, especially for things like metro stations, train stations, public transport. I forget who said it, but when you enter a train station, you can either enter as a king, apologies for the sexist language, it's not my quote, you can enter as a king or you can enter as a rat in a maze. Do you know what I mean? Like there's some train stations you go into and you go, oh, where do I go? And oh, there's this signage that doesn't work and wayfinding doesn't work, and you feel like a rat in a maze. This is part of this new trend that we're seeing in public space design now, and I, for one, am here for it. It is grand. It reframes the space. It reminds you what this space means, what it has been, and and the potential of that space as well. Women are still fairly underrepresented in leadership roles in design. So Good Design Australia has an accolade for Women in Design Award, and this year it was awarded to Sasha Tishkovsky. She has been lifetime innovator in the space of furniture and design sustainability. Her and her husband have been making great strides with their design agency, so well deserved. And there's also an award for a design team of the year. So stick a pin in that one, ladies and gentlemen. Like if you find you love your team and you think this team rocks, like we're crushing it as far as design goes, we would like to know. You know, if you're out there kicking lots of goals, if you're having this sort of impact that you're hearing about, we would love to know. This year it was won by the team, the agency Today, and they really do major in projects for positive social impact. And lastly, and certainly not leastly, the Good Design Award of the Year went to not one but two entries this year. And Nila, back me up on this one if you want. When we were all in the room judging on this, it got to the point where we were doing all the conversations, and every now and again someone would stand up and say something really smart, and we're thinking, well, what are we going to do? And we're really literally split down the middle. In fact, I think it was Brandon who said, okay, look, everyone who wants to go for Hullbot, get to that in a minute, stand on that side. Everyone who wants to go for Deadly Democracy, I'll get to that, stand on that side and we will count them. And fair in, it was 50-50. And I was there, and I was trying to grab the photographer and say, hey mate, come here. But it was split 50-50, and I will tell you why. And this speaks to the richness of not so much the design criteria, but the impact design has. So, Hullbot, does anyone have a Roomba? Like a Roomba, a few, yeah? It's like a robot vacuum cleaner, yeah? Hullbot does that to the sides of boats. It sucks onto the sides of boats. Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah. There's a robot that sucks the sides of boats. Now, you might be thinking, what? How on earth can that get a good design award of the year? But this is the thing. You break it down and you see, not only is it, well, for a start, it's an amazing piece of kit and very well put together. And yes, it cleans the hulls of boats, but in doing so, it actually shaves quite a decent amount of friction off and therefore savings in fuel. And so it got a big tick for sustainability as well. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the magic of what we do. There are so many byproducts of good design. And you probably have them in your work as well, whether you know it or not. The other one is called Deadly Democracy, done by YLab and funded and supported by the Australian Electoral Commission. I think particularly after the result of the last referendum, the Indigenous communities around Australia were understandably not that thrilled, with the result. And you can understand if they were a little bit, you know what, I think we're going to lean out of this white man political structure and process that you have, thanks very much. That's the problem that they had to solve, and one of the ways of solving it is this operation called Deadly Democracy. And it's a set of workshops and materials and programs that they, and it's been co-designed with people on country, and they work with kids and young people in lots of interactive activities to get them not only more literate in our political system, and quite frankly I think so many people need that, it gets them active, it gets them invested, not so much in the system but in their own, not identity, like their own potential in this system. I won't wax lyrical about it anymore, but you can imagine, can you see now when it comes to assessing a Good Design Award of the year, we can have such a diverse spread with such incredible impact. And this year, it had to go to 2, which I think is a lovely story. Yeah. Look, I've waxed lyrical for long enough. Hi Nila, can you please step up? Ladies and gentlemen, Nila Rezaei.
I'm going to read my notes. Okay, so hi, I'm Nila. I'm an industrial designer, and I'm the co-founder of RK Collective, which is a product design studio based in Sydney. I'm going to try to keep this short. So I guess Brandon, myself, and a few of our other colleagues went to London this year to attend the World Design Congress. Organized by the Design Council and the World Design Organization. So just sort of reflecting on this through line that we're speaking of, where the design practice is going. The theme of the Congress was Design for Planet. Now, obviously 2 days of keynotes, workshops, a lot of incredible events, hearing from many I guess industry leaders, Imdi Johar, Celine Saman, Kate Roworth on donut economics, a lot of content which I'm not going to go through, but one thing that I wanted to sort of quickly mention was at the end of the seminar, Congress, Minimal, the CEO of the Design Council, sort of relaunched or reminded us of this new framework they have launched in July 2025, Skills for the Planet Blueprint. So you all know the double diamond. I assume everyone in the room has heard of and knows and practices double diamond. So that was given to us by the Design Council. Early 2000s, they created double diamond, which is it's a foundational design skill, design process for us. Now, a couple of years later, they added another layer, which was the systemic approach to design. And now, in 2025, They have launched the green design skills for the planet, which is really, I think, I see it as an additional layer to, Double Diamond. So we know the foundation. Now, how do we need to actually adopt our design practice to the world that's emerging? And so they've created the green design skills. So there's three, I guess, layers to this, 3 elements. And this is, by the way, available publicly online. So I really recommend that you guys sort of download the PDF, the blueprint, and have a great read of it. It's really good. But just to quickly break it down, the 3 elements of this new framework is, first of all, the green design mindset. So before we even think about how we're going to implement certain skills, we need to actually train our mindset. We need to get to that mindset that this is going to be an upskilling and a new way of designing. Then it comes the foundational design skills, so the Double Diamond and any other sort of frameworks that we might use. And around that, then it comes the green design skills. And the green design skills are sort of interconnected. There are 6 main categories, and under each category there's a specific action or skill. And the way these are designed is really to cover different disciplines, different scales of projects, different sort of stage of design that you might be in. So for instance, for me as an industrial designer, circularity is a big sort of part of our practice. So selecting materials responsibly is skill 6. You might be looking at analyzing emissions data if you're in the sort of world of digital product design, or communicating business value. So that's a fundamental design, practice. But how do you then sort of take the green design skill framing around it? So I'll let Ben sort of dig deeper into that later, but it's a really, really interesting blueprint, and I recommend sort of having a look at what I took away from Mini's presentation of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon. They want you to take this and really understand it and create your own version. If you need to adopt it to suit your practice, that's okay. The key is to sort of make it the next Double Diamond, basically. So, moving to the next section, which is sort of a bit more of a personal reflection for myself and for Arcade Collective. So this year was a year of adventure for us. Arcade Collective is 1.5 years old, so we started it last July, officially. And this year was really about myself and my co-founder exploring what is the type of practice that we want to establish in 2025 in Australia. So, we've been attending different design events, congress, exhibitions, even doing a residency, exploring life-centered design, being a juror on Good Design Australia, and the latest one, which we just got back from, was the Seoul Design Award. And I want to tell you a little bit more about that program. It's also endorsed by the World Design Organization, so you can very much see the same philosophy of planet-centered design coming through. So, let's go to Seoul. I came back from Seoul in late October, 26th of October, and we went there to attend the Seoul Design Award 2025 with the theme of designing for a sustainable life. Now, the theme as designers to look at what makes our life livable, what creates harmony between people, between society, and between environment. And the mission is to really elevate the type of projects, or certain projects that are really directly sort of addressing the wicked problems of our time. Sorry, it's a very problematic jumper I've got on. And they really want to elevate those types of projects. And it's basically sponsored by the Seoul Metropolitan Government, so you'll see a lot of people from the government in this picture, the members of the World Design Organization, so Brandon's friends are all there, as you can see, and this incredible community of designers, this global community of designers, some of which I used to write essays on when I was at uni, so standing next to them on a stage was just unreal. So the jury panel was much bigger than that for the total award, but they've sort of selected 12 members of the jury panel to then come to Seoul and listen to live presentations. So we had to go there and present live and all compete for the grand prize. Now, you know, they come from very different backgrounds, so from architecture, product design, policy, social design, but they're all sort of world-leading members of the world of design. And what they were really looking for was projects that are allowing participation. Now, participation between people to people, participation between people and planet, or non-humans and non-humans. So really projects that are allowing creating these platforms for better collaboration and harmony. They were also looking at sort of projects that are using design to address challenges such as water scarcity, soil regeneration, community building, equality, so on and so forth. Now they went through nearly 1,000 entries from 92 different countries all around the world, and they've picked 10 of those entries to then come and present in person to compete for the grand prize and then the best of the best. The 4 criteria that was used is obviously solving an everyday problem. So it was designing for a sustainable daily life, creative solution, social impact, and a vision for the future, so scalability. And so we had the honor to present our project Crafted Liberation. Some of you may already know about this from last year, so apologies for repeating, but Crafted Liberation is sort of our flagship project at RK Collective, and we were targeting SDG 5, 10, and 12, which is gender equality, reduced inequalities, and responsible consumption and production. So it was a requirement of the award that you link your project to specific sustainable development goals. Now, Crafted Liberation is, it sort of started as a self-initiated project, and it turned into a sort of a much bigger entity. But back in 2023, after the Women Life Freedom movement, my background is Persian, so to give you context, we wanted to do something about it. So we sent a call out to all Iranian women around the world, and we collected about 500 or so pieces of unwanted headscarves. And then we said, okay, we're going to turn these into stadium seats, or seats that look like a stadium seat, through a sort of process of material innovation using textile and plastic waste to create these objects. And the choice of seat was obviously symbolic, because Iranian women are not allowed to go to the stadium, so we're turning that oppression into an object of empowerment. But then after having gone through that process, the material was so interesting where we thought, oh, this actually has legs. We're going to keep going and create these for public space. So that's where we are now. But the idea behind the project is that every woman can actually participate in this act of protest just by donating their headscarf. So without showing identity, without showing, without sort of endangering their life. And we're creating this global network of solidarity by doing that. Thank you. So we presented that along with so many amazing projects from lots of different disciplines, so product design, architecture, etc., etc. And the projects were very different, but all of them have this common thread. So all of them are reframing the problem. They're asking different questions. Instead of chasing solution immediately, when you sort of see a problem, they're asking, how can we change the question that we ask as designers? How are we looking at this problem reframing? And can we apply the same rigor, the same sort of, I guess the same way that we might design for efficiency, usability, user experience, can we apply that same rigor to design for dignity, design for health, design for belonging? And instead of looking at design purely as a problem-solving exercise, where we look at design as a way of stewardship, as a way of, I guess, as a social act, and as an act of generosity. And that way we can mediate, we can shape better relationships, and then ultimately, hopefully, that will lead to a better outcome for everyone. So before we sort of had the competition, each of the members of the jury also gave a keynote, which was a really incredible experience as well. I sort of put here a few screenshots from their slides, which I loved. But there's one that really sticks out for me is this, the world as 100 people, which Dr. Mugendi, one of the members of the WDO, presented. So in this visual, basically, they broke down the planet by gender, religion, language, access to water, housing, and health instead of just countries. And the point is that don't just design for the one person, design for all of the 100, or design for as many of the 100 as you can. And we want to sort of think about designing for all of life and not just the human life in this case. So, you know, how might architecture show better pathways? How might objects create emotions or touch emotions? How can research be felt and not just, I guess, published? How do we design encounters and not just outcomes? And I think I sometimes find it hard to, I guess, feel that I'm changing anything, or sometimes you have projects where you feel, oh, you know, this is just another commercial project, it's not going to make any change in the world, or I'm not going to be given the opportunity to make an impact. But I think impact, more and more I research in this area, I think impact doesn't always come with scale, or that perfect project, you know, from the UN is never going to come and find you. But you can actually create impact just by first setting intention. And, you know, impact is created when you set that intention and when you actively seek to change and create that impact just by even doing the small thing that's in front of you. And I think that's a really nice position to be in as a designer. And I just want to sort of finish it here and say, if there's one job in the world that can actually, you know, prototype a future that's worth living in and that we want to live in, is design. And I think it's sort of building on what Bruce Mao said. No one else can do this. We're the only ones that can do this. So it's a very privileged position to be in, and yeah, I hope we can shape a better future together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nila. I'm constantly inspired by the work of Nila and RK Collective, especially that project, Crafted Liberation. And yeah, I didn't even know, like, it's going into other spaces, like public spaces, which is fantastic. Yeah. I really like this too. Lead with ethics, design for impact, focus on change. And as designers, you know, leading with ethics takes courage. That takes guts. And often that comes at a cost, you know. And sometimes we're the ones, you know, who are called to make that cost. And I think we've all been in meetings and projects where it gets punted to the designer. But sometimes we can reframe that. I think reframing is a key word tonight. I think I get to carry this. It's not like, oh, I have to carry this. Like, I get to carry this. And there is great leadership in there. So speaking of leadership, design for impact. Show people the direction. That's what prototyping does, doesn't it? You're not just telling, you're showing. Focus on change. That can take incredible optimism. And I think optimism is one of those things that us designers can have in spades, you know. Like, by definition, we see a better world, you know. We want to solve that problem. Yeah. Look, I'm going to bring it home with a couple of other cherry-picked personal examples from the winners of the Good Design Awards. But just to sort of echo a few things that we've heard tonight. We've heard, look, I think designing for the world, I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. But if there is a big trend that we're seeing in the entries and the winners, and I suspect you're seeing it too, designing for the world is going from being idealistic to more realistic. We've seen it where once upon a time, yeah, there was a whole award just for sustainability. Now, sustainability is almost table stakes. Like, folks, what are you doing to minimise your environmental footprint? What are you doing to reduce your environmental footprint in some way? I'm sure you know this quote: design is not just what it looks like and feels like. Design is how it works. And we've seen so many examples tonight, and we've heard from Brandon about like the lucky iron fish. Like, it just fits into people's lives. The cube, like, did that work? Yes, it works. Did people use it? No. Why? Because it didn't fit into the way that they operate and cook and live their lives, you know. So good design fits. So if I may, ladies and gentlemen, design is not just what it looks like and feels like and how it works. Design is how it fits. Yeah? Oh, get off. I mean, look at that lily white designer hand there. You know? I mean, you'd never think, look, I used to do a lot of woodwork, and you know, the AI app didn't pick that up. Anyway, look, the point is, good design fits, and we know it, don't we? And we certainly know when it doesn't fit. You know, Brandon shared a story earlier today, like he booked an Uber, and the Uber driver rocked up, and what did he do? Like, he tapped the button, which I'm sure has a lovely UX, to say, yep, he picked up his passenger, and off he went. And so Brandon missed out on his ride, you know. How do you think Brandon felt? Not thrilled, right? It didn't fit with the expectations. And we've certainly seen design, you know, fits over time. Has anyone read Enshittification? Yeah, awesome. Great book by Cory Doctorow. I encourage you to read it, or at least listen to a few podcasts about it. Anyway, the point is, things can start with a great UX and great value. It can be very empowering, and it can even allow repairs. Like, that's great too. That's good design. But over time, what we've seen is this contemporary pattern where the business model takes over, and it gets enshittified, and it becomes extractive. You know, it becomes divisive, it becomes oppressive. These platforms are harder to leave because they've got you, and they reinforce their position. You know what it's like, right? We deserve more than this. So good design still needs to fit over time. That might be something you might want to think about your own work as well. Now, look, that's hard, of course, and it takes guts, just like what we saw. Sometimes the object of design is not the product or the service. Sometimes what you need to kind of peel back the carapace of and start dissecting is what goes underneath. Sometimes you've got to go down the stack. You've got to go perhaps into the design system that informs that product. Sometimes you have to go into the experience strategy or the product strategy that is driving that. Sometimes you've got to go to the very business model and the business rules that govern it as well. And I know a lot of you in this room are already doing that. And that is where, as we know, like, there is fantastic change to happen. Like, good design can fit in there. Now, that takes a lot of, as I said, complexity and intellect to do. And I love it when entries come along like this one, the Evidence for Impact Policy Framework. This was judged best in class for the policy design. In short, it's that the problem they were trying to solve is the lack of funding for niche R&D projects that need more research. It was lacking funding, and they needed a way to try to get more of the right people around the table to speak the same language and to be releasing more funding. And what they did was they reframed it from a moral argument, like, we should do this. We should do this research. Like, yes, of course everyone's going, but they reframed it from a moral argument into an investment imperative. So $1 invested in these projects can return $405. Okay, now you have a lot of people's interests. And they didn't do it as a way to just stop people from working and teach them. They didn't need a lot of training. Their framework of resources and templates and insights and slides and things like that, it just fit with the way the people are already working. Isn't that nice? So that really stuck out for us. Kismet healthcare platform. There's a lot going on in the health. Who's, I know one particular person in the room works in health. Who's working in health or health tech? A few of you, yeah. This area, I'll take that as a yes. Someone went, yeah. This area is going to get a lot more attention, especially here in Australia. Why? Because it is a very fragmented system. Design is really good at fitting into those like nooks and crannies in between the compliance and the rules and the NDIS and people trying to book appointments, just like a piece of Tetris. Why am I doing this? I don't know. My mate Adrian at the front here is looking at me like, you idiot. Anyway. The Kismet Healthcare platform has done a fantastic job, not only of its front end, the website and app, but a lot of back end systems as well, to deal with that complexity and to bring all that together. And one thing I really like, this is a quote from Mark Woodland, the founder. He said, "Too many tools try to replace good judgment with rigid workflows." I've even heard it said, and I've done a lot of work in the education space. I remember someone once said, we've got to design out teachers. What they mean is, to be efficient, we have to remove the human decision element. Why? Because it's too slow. We've got to be efficient. And that's our approach. That may or may not be familiar to you. I'm getting a few nods, which is great. But sometimes it's that human element that is essential, honouring people's experience and decision-making power. And that's what Kismet does. It automates the repetitive, it flags what matters, and it leaves space for professionals to apply their own judgment when it counts. It fits. I really like that. And lastly, look, if anyone has been to these talks that I do every year, you know I love a good Keeping It Real award. This, ladies and gentlemen, is my Keeping It Real award. This is the PB5 pedestrian button. I'm sure you've been in contact with one or more of these. Yeah? Yeah, true story. This was, in fact, it was on the screen before in one of Brandon's slides. Got the Good Design Award of the Year in 1987 and is still going strong, ladies and gentlemen. It is out there. It is fitting with our lifestyles and with pedestrian traffic. It's by Nielsen Design, and I believe there is someone in the room who is very proud that he worked on this, which I think is fantastic. David up the back here, ladies and gentlemen. It is an amazing Aussie icon that we exported to the world. We have every reason to be so proud of this. But, okay, I'll share a couple of fun facts. I could talk all night on this, but then I'll stop. One thing I love about this is that you look at the button and you think, oh, it's activated when I press the button, like some magic. I'm not an industrial designer, but there's contact made. It's done with fancy magnet shit, like who knows. But the point is, it is so robust and resilient that they, weren't only employing user design principles, they were employing frustration design principles. Has anyone been, when you're standing there, you know that? Yeah, they tested for that. Yeah. You cannot kill this button. Like, it will take any punishment that you want. And another thing, fun fact, you might not know this. You know when he goes boop, 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 boop. Yeah, that one. I bet you didn't think you were going to hear that tonight when you came out tonight. Now you might know that the trivia that Billie Eilish, the sound engineer, used that in the song, right? That's not what I'm here to tell you. What I'm here to tell you is the sound engineer, this is even better, the sound engineer that worked on it, again, made sure that it fit not only for the context of the person using it, but for the context of the people who have to live around that button. Like, who wants to hear that all day, every day? Nobody. And so, believe it or not, and it was his invention, the volume changes depending on the ambient volume around. So if it's really loud, it's louder. If it's like the middle of the night or whatever, it's softer. Isn't that cool? So that's design fitting. Right. So look, we do want to have a bit of time for Q&A. I hope this has really inspired you. And I really want to echo what Nila was saying by saying, please don't just think of yourself as a designer by job. You know, you have, as Liam Neeson says, I believe, a unique set of skills, don't you? You know, and if for wherever you're at the moment, bet your bottom dollar there are people down the hall that would love to have you involved and get those set of skills working. Like, go and talk to your ESG team. They would love some help in some storytelling and thinking, how do we like make this like esoteric stuff about ESG more easy for everyone else to understand? You know, go to Brandkind. It's a platform where like there's tons of non-profit organisations who would love some of your time and those unique set of skills to help them in their branding and design assets and things like that. The point is, I'm sure you're already using a lot of these skills. Skill 14, right there, communicating business value. This green skills here, I think what they've done is a top job in kind of codifying, if you will, the sort of things that we kind of already know are there, but it's giving us more wings, it's giving us a system, it's giving us some language, it's giving us a way to go, okay, that I'm really good at, that I'm really good at. I know I shine at that. Now I know what I can go after. Maybe not as a job, but and skill by skill. What other projects can you help with? Follow your fire. There are opportunities there. Follow your fire. Thanks, everyone. Now, may I invite Nila and Brandon up. It's true as B1 said, look, we're going to solve all the design world's problems over at the pub, which I always look forward to. But we'd love any questions that you have for us. Oh, I'll start. Hey, Ben, if I wanted to submit a Good Design Award entry, what's something that will like really look good? Thanks for that question, Ben. I really appreciate you asking. I think if you can tell us what your challenges were throughout that project and how you solved them, and were there any sort of surprises? Like, like Nila was saying, yeah, we thought this was the solution, but then we thought, well, maybe not. We ended up reframing it, and this is our thinking. We'd love to hear about your thinking. Thanks for the question. Over to you.
Would you like
I'll project. So with the Good Design Awards, it's all about sustainability. Do you tie in some natural materials? I understand there's some great recycled materials, maybe upcycled materials. What about things like bamboo and hemp?
It really depends on the category, and within architecture, for example, material usage is a huge thing. Whether it's bamboo or whether it's mycelium is actually something that's we're seeing quite a lot of in terms of experimentation with mycelium and what that can do. So yeah, it depends. Within product design as well, you're actually seeing a lot of really cool products made from alternative materials. We had this beautiful entry many years ago called the Husky Cup, made from waste coffee husks that would otherwise end up in landfill. I'm just trying to think of other examples. Since Ben made the point, you know, if I kind of zoom back 20, 25 years ago when I was running the awards, sustainability we'd be lucky if it was actually even part of the criteria. It was somewhere in the fine print. And I'd be like, oh yeah, it's not really it's all about functionality, it's all about commercial success, it's all about these other elements. Sustainability wasn't really a key factor. I think, speak on behalf of the jury, it's like now it's just a given. And the products, now say we get roughly 1,000 projects entered each year across all those different disciplines. Roughly half don't make the cut. And when Ben spoke about that fundamental criteria of good design, you kind of think, oh, most of those products would actually get a tick in just that one question: is it good design? A lot of them fail, and that could just be because it's made from a terrible material. They've used a horrible manufacturing process that wasn't appropriate, or it just doesn't work. Remember, we had a kettle entered one year. I won't mention the company, and we chucked some water in it and we boiled it, and one of the judges went to pour water out of it and it just spilled everywhere. Like, beautiful looking kettle, but it just failed on that fundamental function. It just couldn't pour water out of the spout, because the spout had a little bit of flash around the edge and it spilled water everywhere. So I think that element of what I like, your triangle example, it's actually at the base is just answering that fundamental question: is it good design? And that encompasses sustainability and materials and functionality. And then, okay, right, if it gets a tick there, is it innovative? And what do we mean by that? Is it different? Is it creative? Is it unique? Is it actually going to shift the dial in that particular sector? Gets a tick there, and then we start to ask the really, really difficult question of what impact is this going to make? And impact is you touched on it, Nila, it's a really interesting question when you start to look at a product. You don't have to have impact in the sense that it's going to change the world, it's going to be the next lucky iron fish, but commercial impact, and that's really important as well. Like, is this actually going to make money for the client? And that's not a bad thing. Right? You've got to have commercial impact, you've got to have social impact, you've got to have environmental impact that's built into it as well. The other point I'd make is, I think Ben, you touched on it, is that, again, your triangle, like drilling down into those layers, kind of reminded me of the Inception movie. You've got to get all the way down to this weird level. But I've seen over the years brilliant products, like such an incredible, clever, innovative product, but it's got a terrible business model. 2-3 years down the track, and we give it a design award for the product design, but no one's designed the business model. That product fails. It's a disaster. And vice versa, where you get actually a pretty ordinary looking product that kind of just gets in, and it's got a really smart business model attached to it. And every other aspect of that product, the digital side, the website, everything, the branding has been beautifully executed, but it's actually an ordinary product, flies off the shelves. So the ones that do exceptionally well actually are a fantastically designed product, but they've got all those other elements being beautifully designed as well. I think that's where the real excellence comes from.
I think just going back to your question about materials, but also going back to thinking systemically, when you're talking about materials, you're not talking about them in isolation. So you need to actually consider the entire life cycle of something. Sometimes a material like mycelium, it's great, but if your product needs to last for a very long time, and if you make it out of mycelium, then it's not going to last for a long time. So it's actually not going to have a great impact. So I think you need to think contextually. So think about usage, think about end of life, think about how it's manufactured, and then considering all of those aspects, then you decide, okay, maybe this is a good material or not. So it's hard to answer because there's no one single solution to bamboo is good and plastic's bad. It depends on your system, really.
I'll try to project. Architecture and industrial design have a physicality, have an almost inherent emotional element to them. How do you reconcile those characteristics when then judging something in the digital space?
Yeah, actually, it's much harder to judge product.
Particularly industrial design, they often have a real specificity of use, whereas something in a digital space might have a much more sort of diffuse or complex
I think that's where the criteria really helps, because you know, you could have a public space like that beautiful metro station where there's thousands of people going through that every day, every afternoon, and then you look at a product like the Holbot, you know, it's probably not going to have as much of an impact on people, but if you look at the impact that it has on the environment, Ben told kind of half the story. It is absolutely phenomenal. Like you think, oh yeah, it's just scrubbing the bottom of boats. Biofouling is the term. All these, you imagine all the boats sitting around the world, popping up and down in water. It's not necessarily, you know, all the rich people's boats that sit there. I couldn't really care about their biofouling. It's if you scale that up and you think about all the container ships transporting our goods across countries, and the fuel saving, I think it was something like 27% fuel saving. Don't quote me on the percentage. Whatever, even if it's 2%, right? You think of the amount of fuel that can be saved from a product like that is just insane. But the other aspect is to actually clean a boat, the hull of a boat properly. You have to dry dock it. You take it out of the water. It's an amazing. There's a really, really big expense associated with that. So a lot of boat owners just can't be bothered. We'd rather just let it sit there. When they do dry dock the boat, they actually use these horrible chemicals. They have to spray on the biofouling to get it off, and all those chemicals then go back into our waterways. So when you start to peel away, you know, it's not just a clever product. It's actually got all these layers of impact. I think it's when those products come along. They're absolutely incredible. But I'm not answering your question. Sorry, it's like this challenge between evaluating a piece of architecture versus evaluating a digital app or evaluating a product. It's incredibly difficult, and I think what's beautiful is you bring all these diverse people in the room from, you know, there are architects and very, very highly qualified architects in the room, and engineers and software electronics guys and industrial designers, digital designers, service designers, policy designers, and everyone takes a bit of a conversation and go, wow, I didn't know that about that little part of the product. So yeah, I heard a quote a couple of years ago where I think see if I can repeat it properly, is that the great thing about designers, the challenging thing about designers, is that we design things for people that we'll never meet. I kind of love that. And I think where it comes to public spaces, like the designers of that incredible metro station, you're never going to meet all the people that go through there. And that's quite profound when you think of that. We design things that go out into the world and are used by people that we'll never meet, we'll never know. But it's our job to use the skills of design and the skills of empathy to try and get to know them as much as we possibly can, and then design those spaces and those places and those products and those services and experience for those people. It's, as Nila said, it's an incredibly powerful thing, but it also comes with a great deal of responsibility.
I think just reflecting on the judging experience, the way the whole sort of judging and the criteria is designed, it takes out the subjectivity. So how something feels, yes, a digital product also should feel good, but I think, yeah, the way the whole thing works, there's not really a subjective way of judging something based on, if it's physical or digital. And I think it makes it a bit easier for judges to sort of work through that.
Yeah, I mean, you've spoken to a constant angst of mine, brother. Thank you. Thanks. No, because like a digital entry has, to my memory, never won Good Design Award of the Year, right? Because the thing is that by its very nature, like digital is very ephemeral, right? And I remember back in the day, I redesigned the website for the Parliament of Australia, and I thought I was the duck's nuts. Like, it was just fantastic. And it was so good. And then, about 5 years later, it got redesigned, and then that was it. It was gone. And sure, I might be able to go to what's that Internet Archive site? Thank you, that one. I'm sure I could go back and relive the glory, but it's ephemeral, isn't it? And so I think we have to have that kind of pragmatism if we're a digital designer, knowing that this is going to change. And yet, There are some things that can only nudge better behaviour. There are some things that can only improve people's lives in a digital way and not in a physical way. I mean, I know we showcased the Kismet healthcare platform before. Another one was the Ovum app, a fantastic app for especially targeted for women's health and women's mental health. And there's been other awards like that for getting help for your mental health through an app. Like, that's a very personal thing. You know, yes, you can go to a public space and think, isn't this a lovely bench? You know, isn't this a nice tree? And that's great. But digital still has so much potential in improving our lives. And on the other side, we know it when it doesn't. For example, I know a lot of banking apps have either removed their messaging functionality or certainly done other things to block the sort of harmful messages that can happen that end up, it's a side of domestic violence. I'm sure a lot of you in the room know this, where there's abusive and coercive behaviour that can happen in messaging in your banking app. You know, where you have to do your finances as a couple undergoing separation. And so we have to be very, very mindful of these sort of things. So digital is still very important. Yeah.
I'll just jump in on the sort of challenge between evaluating architecture. And we only really introduced all these other categories, so literally, 10 odd years ago when you came on board. It was very much about product design, and that was the history of the awards, going all the way back to the Industrial Design Council of Australia. And I think the thing that fascinates me with architecture and place design, if you look again at that metro station, I always sort of say to myself, I'd love to know what the cost of design was. Like, well, how much did they pay the architects? How much did they pay the people who are involved in the actual design process versus the cost of the building? And I reckon it would be minuscule, right? But if you get that wrong, that place is a dump, and they probably have to knock it down in 10 years' time because this is terrible. But if you get it right, it's, as Ben said, you enter feeling like a king. And that's the thing I love about the awards, is it allows us to tell that message. The return on design investment, whether you're designing a product, it's minuscule. If you think of the cost of commercializing that whole bot, it would be in the millions. But the cost of design is so small, but yet the return is gigantic. And with public space and architecture, that's even more. These buildings cost hundreds of millions of dollars, but the cost of design is so small. And to me, it should be amplified. We should be celebrated, saying, wow, it's such an amazing way to create value and change people's lives and create a better quality of life just with the small little investment called design. So we try and hammer that message home when we speak to politicians about the value of design. Sometimes it gets through and sometimes it doesn't. But again, I come back to the awards. It provides a platform to have those conversations and showcase these incredible projects and then tell the design story behind it.
We should change our pricing strategy, I think.
I couldn't think of a better note to finish on. A huge thank you for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And before everyone bolts, look what's been happening on the wall.
Oh, wow.
So Diana, do you want to give us a quick run through?
It was really, really cool. We used more than what we thought of what we're going to use for the board, and there was just so much good insights and content came out of it. We're still going. We're still going.
Yeah, there are a lot of good points being said. I think maybe there are too many points to drop, but it was super inspiring, and I learned so much about the Good Design Award. You know, I've seen it in the office for Diana before. I was like, wow, this is so cool, and now I'm hearing about it in real life. So yeah.
I think we won't go through every part because we'll just let everyone take it in as they're going out. Ellyn, do you want to say just a couple of words of?
I mean, one of the things that we will say is we don't really talk about the process of this, and I'll just really quickly unpack the process for you. So, even though this practice is called visual thinking, one of the biggest elements of doing this is listening. So all of the artists start by listening. They kind of have to listen deeply, and then they have to select key moments that kind of stand out to them, and that goes through synthesis. And then in as few words as possible, they try to capture that point. And that's often done alongside illustration at the same time. And the illustration is not there to be beautiful, it's actually there to help remind you of what that particular point is. So I think the whole point of using visual thinking is kind of to speed up the process between thought and ideas and then understanding. So I think it kind of speaks for itself. So yeah. So have a look, and feel free to come and chat to us as well. If this is something that's kind of interesting for you, and you want to try it out, and you want to maybe upskill in your whiteboard skills, you want to kind of try your hand at visual thinking, we do offer mentoring, and we give you kind of 45 minutes to an hour of our time where we kind of walk you through how you might do this, and then you get to try it out and sit in design thinking. So it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks everyone, that was awesome. And over the last 18 months that we've been collaborating with Shapeshifters to do this, it's just added another dimension every month to the talks and sort of the thing that you get to remember it by. So take your photos, we're going to get out of here really fast, and we're going to the Occidental across the road where it will continue for probably quite a while. So thanks everyone for coming, and see you in 2 weeks, not here, at the other Atlassian building, which is across the road from One Martin Place GPO. So that's where we'll be in 2 weeks' time. Thank you, and thanks again to Ben, Nila, and Brandon.